All right, welcome back. Episode 9 of Health Further. First and foremost, just want to apologize about the audio last week. We're still dialing in this remote model, and I think this week will be better. Although we are still remote as I continue to be on the road on this conference run. But Vic, how you doing, man?
I'm doing well. I think we at least definitely better. I now have my earbuds in, and I feel like a real podcaster.
You're a pro. You're a pro now, man.
Yeah.
You know, I should always be the one when I'm on the road. I should always be the one that's creating the problem because I got the hotel Wi-Fi and the room. I got music going on outside. So, but anyway, I am right.
So you've been in 3 different conferences in the last week or 10 days or something.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
Where are you right now?
It's been a run. I'm on Mackinac Island in Michigan for the Michigan Health and Hospital Association meeting. I keynoted this morning. It went great. Thanks for asking. And it's a beautiful island.
That's way up there. That's way up there by Canada.
It is.
Right?
It is. It's up here. It's up here. So I think the smoke mostly cleared out before I got here. But it was pretty smoky. And it's still a little bit overcast. It's not terrible though. But it's beautiful out here. I mean, you know, super picturesque. There's horses everywhere and no cars on the road, and you know they make you dress up at the Grand Hotel and all that kind of stuff. But it's been a great event. I met a lot of great people out here, so that's always good. And yeah, and then you know before I was here, I was at HFMA, which at least was at home, so in Nashville at the Gaylord Opryland, and I was there. Our listeners may not know, but I'm on the national board of HFMA, so I didn't speak or anything like that. But as a board member, I was in attendance. And another great event. I'm not sure if it was a record, but they had about 4,100 people in attendance. So you know, big showing. So you know, kudos to the group who put on the event. You know, the team at HFMA does a great job. And yeah, last week I was in Aspen for the Aspen Ideas Health Festival. Yeah. So it's been a run.
Yeah, so we talked about the Aspen Festival last week in detail, but give me like a summary of these 2 healthcare focused. HFMA is really focused at finance. Mm-hmm. There's a lot to unpack in health system finance, and then you're with the Michigan Hospital Association, also big hospital groups. What are the trends? What are you seeing out there? Or let's just talk about what's happening on the front lines.
Yeah, so you know. For HFMA, I would say there were 2 big things I walked away with. One is that the revenue cycle industry is a really big industry. You know, this is an industry that I'm not sure when it really started in terms of like all the rebadging that was happening. I know it's been happening pretty much as long as I've been in healthcare. You know, so it's been happening at least since 2015, back when Health Further was a conference. We had rebadgers there, so I'm not sure when this started. But Vic, the health.
It started 20 years ago. I mean, it's been in Nashville's been pretty strong in it for a long time.
It's massive. Okay,
print money.
It's massive. Yeah. It's massive. Okay, that is a massive part of the healthcare industry, and I think it's so obscure and so not understood, you know, outside of the HFMA world, it's really not well understood that I don't know if people actually know how big it is from a dollar perspective, like how much of the overall industry is kind of made up inside of RevCycle, but it's massive. That's kind of one big takeaway. The other big takeaway is and we've talked about this, but it has not been as clear to me, and I don't know why, as it was this weekend and early this week at HFMA. There really are 3 kinds of hospitals today. There's for-profit hospitals. We know a lot of them because we're in Nashville. You know, HCA is the sort of poster child for that. Bill Rutherford was on stage in the opening panel, you know, CFO for HCA. You know what I didn't know is that Bill has been at HCA his entire career. Did you know that?
Yes. Yeah,
it's incredible.
Yeah, he's a lifer. He's incredible. He's probably maybe the best CFO in the country, but one of the best. Certainly.
It's incredible. And
HCA is really good at operations and finance.
Yeah. So there's the for-profits, right? And we can just sort of say, you know,
Yeah.
exemplified by HCA, but many, many other for-profits. And we sort of know how
Yeah.
they operate. Then I'm going in order of what I would say are stability in this time, right? 3+
Yeah.
years of some form of emergency, whether it was the pandemic or whether it's, inflation driven by, high labor costs and, Fed rates, going through the ceiling, right? So for profit, then there's nonprofits that have a health plan. And I think there are actually a lot more of those than people realize there are. There's a really good number of health plans out there that are making a real push to be fundamentally or at least 50% value based.
Health plans or health
Health
systems?
systems, health systems, but
Yeah, health. Right. Right.
but health systems that have a health plan component to them. This is critical. I don't see any health systems without a health plan that are talking about going full on value based care. I don't see any of them doing that. Just because the capability, the core capability is the risk management piece, and that's tied to being able to structure the payer contracts and capture the data and the actuary capabilities. So, so much of the value-based care capability, I know they talk about data and, care coordination and quarterbacking and being able to be responsible for the full episode of care. And I get all that, but at the scale of a health system, right? Not a PCP, but at the scale of a health system, I don't really see any health systems doing that don't have a health plan. Okay, don't have that
Yeah,
capability in
I think
house.
that's right. I think it's also you kind of need some density in your population, right? So typically, the ones that do well are in a geography where they have a reasonable percent of the patient volume, and then they also have a lot of the insured members, and that sort of density is really helpful. So, like,
My bet is those two things go hand in hand: the health plan and the density.
Yes, that's right. So I think it is. It's more difficult for a nationwide nonprofit like Ascension, Common Spirit to put a health plan in place because they don't have the density.
Yes.
And I think it's easier for Kaiser and Geisinger is probably the classic example. But there's lots of examples that they're in a region.
Yes.
And they have 4 states and Banner, for instance, or someone like that who is, they're not in every state, but they have a lot of density in the Southwest.
Yes. So that's kind of the second kind. And, I will say I'm seeing more of those that are doing okay. They seem to be operating, they seem to be innovating, they seem to be navigating the situation. They seem to have been able to really marshal the culture necessary to make changes early on that are now starting to pay off, right? And I can't fully connect the dots on that. It's probably worth somebody doing a study on it, but just anecdotally, as I'm just talking to leaders in the industry, that's what I'm sort of picking up. And then the third bucket are the pure nonprofit health systems. And you already talked about the national ones, but I think this is also true for even regional ones that do not have a health plan. Okay.
Oh yeah, I mean, I spent a lot of time with those groups trying to raise a fund a year ago. There's a lot of them, and they're suffering.
Man.
They really have a lot of challenges.
Yeah, there's so many challenges there, and just to go back to our episode where we broke down Common Spirit's third quarter financials, payer mix.
Yeah.
I mean, you really can sort of just start there. What is the payer mix? And we were talking about their payer mix being 67%, and we were kind of astounded. I think we haven't spent enough time actually looking at the payer mix of these nonprofits, because I was hearing several that were over 70%. This weekend.
Yeah.
Okay. I even heard a couple of people, none of this is attributable, right? So, you're not going to be able to figure out who told me these things. But like, I even heard somebody say,
right.
Listen, we're going to go to the government and just sort of say, listen, you're going to have to change this stuff, or we're going to have to stop taking care of these people. Right. So I think we really are heading towards something. We're heading towards something serious that's going to have to happen. And you and I talk a lot about the imperative of innovation, but I don't believe this is like something you can solve with innovation. The fundamentals of the business model are just so upside down. They were already headed to be upside down, but the last 3 years have have just fast forwarded that process.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, I mean, me bringing a new tech innovation that will save them a few basis points is not going to change the fact that they're losing $1 billion a year.
no.
I mean, it's just too big.
Yeah.
It's too big. And I think they have already gone to the federal government. I know that a big lobbying group went last summer and tried to get relief, and they were not happy with the results. I'm sure they'll go back. I don't know that it's going to be very well received. I just don't, because you have these other groups, the for-profits and the kind of integrated health systems with the payer that are, doing pretty well. I think HCA stock is a buy right now. It's doing really well, and so it's kind of a weird thing for a politician to give support, give subsidies when the hospital down the street's doing well. Or doing okay.
Yes, until the people stop being able to get care. Because I like everything you're saying is correct politically, like the difficulty there politically, everything you're saying there is correct. However, it's also true that HCA is not in those markets. They're not taking care of those same people, right? So it's a false equivalent in that way, right? They're not the same thing. And I understand how Byzantine this industry is, and politics and Byzantine industries don't go along very well in terms of, politicians caring about what the public thinks in that case. But once people stop being able to get care, that's going to be an entirely different situation. Now, we are generally talking about the poor and the vulnerable, right? And the poor, the vulnerable, and the seniors. So we'll see whether or not we can galvanize enough political will to support that population. But I just feel like something very serious is going to go down in the next 12 months on this front, because the trends are getting to a very, very scary place.
Yeah. And so what would we recommend? Or do we know?
I don't have an answer. To me, that is a part of the industry. I mean, look, I'm not saying that I'm not raising my hand to help as an innovator and on behalf of all, innovators in the healthcare industry. So all the venture funds, all the private, everybody who wants to help. I'm not saying we're putting our hand down. I'm simply saying I think it's insufficient. So, it's certainly necessary. There needs to be more technology. There needs to be more innovation. But the time that we have to solve this problem just doesn't line up with the time it would take to absorb that innovation, right? There's going to be some bridge that's going to need to be built here. If we want these systems to be able to be if we want them to have a chance to transform, right? We're going to need a bridge to that transformation. So to me, that just seems unavoidable.
It's interesting. I think that there's two things that I'm frustrated about. Okay, so it's very clear to me that a nonprofit health system should have an integrated payer. Period. Like you have to have that. And so if the government's going to provide a bridge or support or subsidies, we should say that is part of the equation. And then the other thing, which is a personal thing, but I have an exchange student from Spain staying with me now. And the data transparency, data portability, I mean, it's embarrassing. She's 16 years old, right? So she's young, but I'm embarrassed talking to her about our health system because she's 16 years old, and she pulled out her phone at our dinner table and showed me all of her health records on her phone from Spain. And I can't show her that. I don't have my health records, and I can't get them, even though I have insurance, I have multiple doctors. And so the other part of this, I think, is trying to enforce the statutes that are already out there, that we create transparency, we allow. And it's not that I expect every patient to be shopping, but I think you don't need that. There will be groups that come in and collect reports and show lots of people where to build extra services because they're not efficiently delivered, and you just have a more functioning market.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, so there's a lot that could be done. I don't have a lot of confidence that it will be done, but yes, that we're going towards this. It's unsustainable. These health systems that are in one metro area, or maybe they're in one state, they employ a lot of people, they take care of a lot of people, and they are burning money every quarter. When I was looking at this 6 months ago, the average health system had about 8 months of cash, and that was several months ago.
Yeah,
and so they're going to be out of cash this fall.
Yeah, it's a huge problem. So anyway, you asked for my rundown on HFMA. I mean, those are the 2 big points. And those are the 2 big points. I don't really have that much to report from the Michigan Health and Hospital Association, honestly. I mean, I was a performer here, so I did the keynote, and right below me. So I'm up in the room recording this. Right below me, everyone's dressed to the nines, having cocktails, enjoying themselves, and so I'm still kind of at work, not really enjoying the festivities. Right.
Yeah. Well, we will continue and then get you down there to the
yeah.
But I want to talk about the breaking news at the Supreme Court today, which is coming out like an hour before we started recording. So I'm still absorbing it. I'm sure you're still absorbing it. But let's talk through that, even just our quick takes on what this means for our society, but then try to tie it to healthcare if we can.
Yeah, well, I think we definitely can tie it to healthcare. I mean, this is the second really, truly significant SCOTUS ruling that reverses a previous SCOTUS ruling, and from similar eras, and is really sort of demonstrating a change in the current view of the Supreme Court on what is constitutional and what is not constitutional. These are really big fundamental changes, and the first one is clearly a healthcare issue, right?
The dogs is clearly healthcare.
Clearly healthcare. This one is also healthcare, right? Because it's about education. It's about higher education, and higher education is inextricably linked to healthcare. Our clinicians all get, all of our clinicians of the highest licensure must go through higher education institutions. They must, and there's clearly some serious disparities in the profession today, where we don't have the requisite diversity of doctors. I think the American Association of Medical Colleges has recognized this and has an entire initiative right now around Black men in medicine, specifically around Black men becoming doctors. When I was at Aspen Ideas Health last week, one of the 10 big ideas they opened up the event with was, what if we recruited Black boys to be doctors the way we recruit them to be athletes? It was a tremendous idea, and it sort of made everyone just think and realize, the way.
Well, and that kind of initiative, if you shoot to be a professional basketball player and miss, you don't have a great future. But if you shoot to be a doctor and miss, like my mother wanted me to be a doctor. She was like whipping me and trying to get me to be a doctor from the time I was 5 years old. And I missed that. I didn't want to be a doctor. I had a lot of doctor friends, but it wasn't right for me. But then you still have gotten all that training, and there's plenty of other things.
That's right.
So like that culture change of training 1,000 young Black boys to be doctors, they can do 100 things if they decide they don't want to be a doctor.
That's exactly right.
Versus if they blow out their knee and they can't play basketball anymore, there's not that much they can do.
That's exactly right. And look, I mean, I know some incredible Black doctors who will directly say that they wouldn't be where they are if it were not for affirmative action. So, what was interesting, I think, for me today was this has been rumbling around for a while. I knew it was going to happen. I wasn't tracking what day it was going to happen, and it happened today. I actually got the notification on my phone while I was watching Dr. Alicia Jackson, who is one of the top docs at Common Spirit. Um, she and I basically we kind of keynoted the event this morning. She went on, then I went on, and then we did a panel. I'm watching her. I'm watching her tell her story about basically coming out of a very low income all black neighborhood and beating all the odds because people cared about her and gave her a chance. And now she's one of the most important, influential doctors in America right now, right? A top doc at Common Spirit. And while I'm watching her, I'm watching her on stage, and then I get this notification of this happening, and I have to just say that it made me way more sad than I thought it would. I'm on this beautiful island, and I've mostly, I went and took a walk. I got lunch, but I came back and went to my room and took a nap. I've just been, I think, just as a black man in America, the importance of affirmative action, not just in my life, but in my family and my friends and my community's lives, has just been this ever present thing. And I think I kind of got a little bit of an understanding of how many women felt when the Dobbs ruling came down. Um, which was something that was just there for your entire life is now removed, is now gone, right?
Right.
And I don't know that.
Yeah, you're grieving, or
for sure,
it's a loss.
for sure. And I don't, and I've also engaged in some conversations, and there's definitely different opinions on it. Different people are having different experiences, with it. So I'm just articulating mine. But clearly, this is going to impact healthcare. I don't think there's any question about it. It's going to impact healthcare. And I guess one of the biggest things, when I was talking to you earlier, and I want to hear you talk about this, but you sort of asked the question, how is this actually going to be implemented? And, like we could say the same thing about Dobbs. How was that implemented, right? I mean, it was so severe and so sharp because it's coming from the Supreme Court, right? It like instantly changes our world, and the healthcare industry that doesn't change quickly, doesn't adopt innovation. Laws can be innovative too, right? And this new ruling, there was no glide path off. There was no, okay, for the next 12 months, here's how we're going to de-escalate, and we're going to create new processes, and we're going to create new best practices. And no, none of that. It was just, it's over, it's illegal, can't see you. And the next thing you know, we're hearing all these, stories about women having really, really terrible encounters with the healthcare industry, right? Because, partially because of the law, but partially because there was no time to adjust to the law, right? And I think this is a very similar situation where how do we move forward?
I think it's similar, but worse. I mean, Dobbs, it was pushed to the states, and each state is different. Many states didn't have laws that were very accommodating. Some weren't prepared that well. A lot of states, unfortunately, if like Tennessee, they were prepared to be very very restrictive. But this is different in my mind because I went to Amherst College. It's a very small, exclusive school. I got in because I played football. I could not have gotten in otherwise. And it's not a significant, it's a Division III school. So it's not like we're on TV or football is that important. But they want to have a balanced class. They let in people who play music instruments. They let in people in debate. They want a balanced class with all different interests because the people in admissions think that leads to a more healthy, diverse, interesting 4-year experience. And race is part of your life part of your life, part of your perspective, where you come from. It's hard to separate race from who the people are. And saying that you cannot use race as part of the input, I think is going to lead to a much less interesting student body. And unfortunately, a lot of foreigners that have better test scores there's a lot of people outside this country that have spent a lot of time trying to get access to schools because it's their way out. And so it's like at Harvard, which was, the named one, Harvard and North Carolina were the two schools named in the suit. They have a Chinese and Asian. That was the complaint, really, that there were not enough Chinese nationals getting in compared to their qualifications, and whatever side of the balance sheet or the decision one is on that, I don't know what they do tomorrow. Like, they still have to figure out a way to create a class at Harvard or at Amherst or at any school that is going to be able to, live together and learn from each other and do all the things that make the school run. And I don't think it's going to be easy to make that race blind. I don't know how that's going to work. And unfortunately, I think probably Harvard will be fine. Right? They will figure out something. But I think what you're sad about, or what I believe you're sad about, is the unintended consequences are going to be other programs that are not as high profile that have been really helpful to Black and brown communities that now are going to be cut off for no reason, really. And so, like, how we navigate that, I don't know, but it's not going to be good.
Vic, I think that the thing, and then I want to move on because we've got some other stories, but I think one of the things that just most makes me sad is that as we came out of the pandemic and we had this entire narrative around racial reckoning, there was a pendulum swing and there was sort of a backlash against that. And, I've noticed a lot of people, particularly white people, sort of, questioning whether or not systemic racism is even a thing, and if you bring up something like redlining to many of them, they wouldn't even know what it is. Many of them don't like literally don't know what redlining is, right? And so, like, there are many people who simply think that, like, once the Emancipation Proclamation was put into effect, like, that was it, or after Martin Luther King, there's a lot of people who like to evoke the name of Martin Luther King Jr., right? And just like after that, it was sort of all good, not understanding the actual history of discrimination, that's happened in this country, and what happens when you have compounding generational discrimination, right? And so what we now just are.
I mean, most people's net worth is in their home, and the redlining tactics, which went on for decades, you probably know how long, but for decades, maybe 100 years.
They are. You want to hear something crazy? I have friends who have gone to buy houses in certain neighborhoods, and it's still on the deed.
Yeah,
it's still on the deed.
But like, if you don't start building equity in your home 3 generations ago, I mean, so for me, for instance, okay, like when obviously, I'm white from Boston. My grandfather came over from Italy, went to Harvard night school, and then he was a realtor. So he was selling houses and then bought houses and made some money. He was Italian, but that was close enough to white at that point that he was fine. And then I got out of college and wanted to buy rental property. And my grandfather had passed away, but my grandmother co-signed for me. And that's just an example of where, like, my privilege of being able to have the ability for my grandfather to buy houses then allowed me to build net worth in a way that if you didn't have that family history, if you were a Black family and were redlined, your grandmother couldn't help you in that way. And that's a small example, but like it affected my life in a way that I got to buy this rental property. And then, I was paying the mortgage with the rental income, and then I got her off the loan 5 years later. But if I was Black, that wouldn't have been possible. And that's not fair. And I personally got an advantage because I'm white, or more to the point, my grandfather was white. And that's, now. That's right now. And so these things are certainly real. The pendulum swam a long way towards fairness because of how terrible the pandemic was, and George Floyd, and all the really bad things that happened. And I think people just they just forget. And I don't know that the Supreme Court, I don't know what they were thinking. I'm not party to that, but I think a lot of the complaints were from, rich white guys that wanted to go to Harvard and couldn't get in, or Chinese nationals that couldn't get in. There were fights that had nothing to do with Black America, but it's going to really impact poor people, Black people, brown people, like everything does. And so anyway, we can move on, but I agree. I don't know how to fix it, but I agree.
Yeah. Well, thanks for bringing it up. It does, it feels better to talk about it. That's for sure. So I appreciate that. All right. What's next? What are we talking about next?
Yeah, I got sidetracked. So just to circle back on Emeticis agreed to move away from option care, pay a $106 million termination fee in order to sell or merge with United Health Group in the Optum division. So Optum continues to be very strong. And I guess that's not surprising, but that is sort of related to this payer is an important component of the health system. I feel like United Health Group's coming in from the other direction. They are assembling ways to deliver care, maybe not in the ICU or in the OR suite, but in everything around that.
Well, listen, if you're truly thinking about moving to a value-based care future, right? The OR and the ED are the last things you're focused on.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, you don't want those.
Yeah,
I mean, you'd rather leave those to someone
else. Those are the last things you're focused on. That's, there's no value there. There's just expense there, right? I mean, there's massive expense there. So you're trying to move away from that. I think you're absolutely right. I think hopefully people are waking up to the true significance of the ambition of United Health Group. And by the way, I don't say that in a bad way. Some organization has to step up and get serious about the future of healthcare in America. Like, seriously, it cannot be this. Like the idea that this model continues. It's just that's not a real idea. That's not a real idea.
Yeah.
That healthcare continues to eat more of the GDP like a Pac-Man. That cannot be, that just cannot be an idea. Okay. So, to me, it's like when you see them not just acquire LHC, but then go after Emeticis, it's like, okay, fine. There's certainly a anti-monopoly view that one could take, given those are clearly the two largest enterprise home health operations in the country, certainly. But at the same time, we talked about this before, they're both still pretty small in a hyper-fragmented market at the end of the day. And look, we got to cobble together the system of the future, and we're quite frankly nowhere near it. We're nowhere near it. So if we're looking at this as a roadmap, I'd kind of just say, man, more power to them. Let people keep complaining and let them keep building the system of the future. Whatever. I mean, I don't know what else to say. Because I'm sure if you and I are not privy to it, but if we were privy to the UHG roadmap, you know, this would be step, I don't know, 27 out of 207, right? I mean, there's
Yeah.
years of components that they need to build and add on to truly get us to a healthcare model that's going to turn around the curve on life expectancy, turn around the curve on health outcomes, turn around the curve on the absolutely morbid stats on maternal health, regardless of race, and then absolutely shameful when we talk about women of color, to turn around the swelling cost of care in this country. You know,
Yeah.
why would I be more outraged about UHG buying a Amedisys than I would be outraged about any of those things? I'm
Oh,
not.
I don't fault UHG. I think I would like there to be multiple competing players. I like a world where there's Apple and Android and HBO and
These other
Netflix.
players need to get
And so
serious then.
yes, that's right. They need, and it's all going to be from the payer side. There is no health system that is even trying to do it.
Yeah. Well,
They just don't have the
maybe
aspirations.
Kaiser, maybe Kaiser.
Yeah,
We
we'll
need to
see.
watch what they do. They're not going to have the scale, but
Yeah,
we need to continue to watch and see what they do. Right? We need to continue to watch, see what they do, because
yeah,
they're super vertical in terms of like a medical school, right? So I mean,
yeah,
I think
yeah. They could be really good if they grew in their geographies just on the East Coast. It would be good.
yeah.
I didn't bring it, but we can just talk through it. CMS and then the actuarial group that helps CMS, they projected out the next 10 years of healthcare spend, and it's projected to grow to 7 trillion.
I mean,
So to your point about
come
it's
on,
like 7
this is
trillion
not real.
is
This is not real. What are we like? What are we doing? 7 trillion.
is their. I mean, I don't know how many accountants worked on it. A bunch. That's their best projection. They're going from 4.3 today to 7 trillion
Vic,
in 10
Vic.
years.
So now, how unbelievable is that? Because when you and I really started working on this stuff, the number was two.
Yeah,
The number was 2 trillion.
I know.
We have not been working on this 10 years. The number is now four. So the idea that in the next 10 years the number is going to be seven, that's looking back. That's literally just rear view mirror math. That's not even a crazy model.
No. It's a straight line model. Like it's a. I mean, I looked at it and I got tired of looking at it. It's basically. I mean, if a startup came in and gave me this projection, I would throw them out of the room. But it's just everything grows at the same rate it's been growing
Right.
forever to 7 trillion. So yes, it's not possible in my mind that happens. And United Health Group is really good. And I have nothing bad to say about United Health Group. I'd like someone else to also keep them honest and
yeah, and look, I think CVS bought Signify, so I think they've already kind of made their they've decided what their play is going to be in the space. They've got far more of a consumer front door than United does, so they've got different assets, a different asset mix. But I don't think you can discount them. I don't think you can discount Walmart. I don't think you can discount Amazon. I think there are players who are, Amazon obviously has an incredible path to the home.
Yeah.
Their boxes come to my home all the time. So, if their boxes come to my home, then they've got cars that come to my home. If they've got cars that come to my home, they can get all sorts of stuff to my home, including people. So, I think that we've got a cohort of players, right, that are working on the system of the future, and I just don't think I don't think we can knock them because, as you said, 4 trillion going to 7 trillion should be unacceptable for all Americans. Like that should just be unacceptable. We should just say that's just not acceptable.
Right. Especially with the outcomes that we
have. This is ridiculous.
Okay, let's go to our sponsor.
Thanks, guys, for the opportunity to talk about our pre-seed fund, Jumpstart Foundry. My name is Doug Edwards, CEO of Jumpstart Health Investors, the parent company of Jumpstart Foundry. We're so excited to be able to talk about early stage venture investing, certainly the need for us to change the crazy world of healthcare in the United States. We are spending 20% of our GDP, north of $4 trillion a year on healthcare with suboptimal outcomes. Jumpstart Foundry exists to help us find and identify and invest in innovative companies that are going to make a difference in healthcare in our country. Every year, Jumpstart Foundry invests a fund, raises a fund, and deploys that across 30, 40, 50 assets every year, allowing ease of access for our limited partners to invest to help us make something better in healthcare. Some of the benefits of Jumpstart Foundry is there's no management fees. We deploy all the capital that's raised every year in the fund. We find the best and brightest, typically around single-digit percentage of companies that apply for funding from Jumpstart, and we invest in the most incredible, robust, innovative solutions and founders in the United States. Over the last 9 years, Jumpstart Foundry has invested in nearly 200 early-stage, pre-seed stage companies in the country. Through those most innovative solutions that Jumpstart Foundry invests in, we also provide great returns and a great experience for our limited partners. We partner with AngelList to administer the fund, making that ease of access not only with low minimums, but the ease of investing in venture much better. We all know that healthcare is broken. Everyone deserves better. Come alongside us with Jumpstart Foundry, invest in making the future of healthcare better and make something better in healthcare. Thank you, guys. Now back to the show.
All right, we're back. What's next story?
Okay, next, MAPS, Multidisciplinary Association for Psychedelic Studies, MAPS, was in the Wall Street Journal today. So they have been around for, 20 years or so. They're really one of the two leaders in bringing psychedelics, ecstasy, mushrooms, all the different psychedelics, trying to show that they can really have therapeutic benefit mostly in behavioral health, PTSD, depression. And so they are likely to have the first FDA-approved treatment, MDMA, which is ecstasy, used to treat PTSD. The estimate is that it'll be approved by the FDA sometime next year. We've had entire segments of the show talking about FDA. That may or may not happen. But the interesting thing today was that they are going to raise money from private investors and VC firms, even though they are a nonprofit. Kind of similar to how OpenAI did it, where they dropped down a public benefit corporate sub, and they raised money in that, sort of limiting the payouts, but it can be lucrative to the investors. So there's sort of two aspects that I wanted to talk through. One is it seems like psychedelics are, I'm a believer in psychedelics, especially for really challenging behavioral health issues. I think they can have a pretty dramatic effect. And my bias is that they haven't been adopted by pharmaceutical companies because they're not really typically an ongoing treatment forever. It's more of a 1, 2, 3 times, and you're better. And that's not as good a business model as take this pill forever. I think there's going to be lots of approved treatments in the next 5 years. So that's interesting to talk about. And then it seems like there's a new financing mechanism for nonprofits now, which is also interesting, given that we're VCs and need to decide if we want to participate in those markets. But it's certainly something that seems like it's trending now.
Yeah. Okay. So two things there to talk about. Let's start with the MDMA and just psychedelics more in general. And I'm going to divert a little bit, and then I'm going to circle back. So in the last show, the one big talk that I didn't get to talk about because it hadn't happened yet was the Surgeon General. So we talked about the FDA commissioner and the HHS secretary last time, but the Surgeon General spoke at Aspen Ideas Health as well. He spoke on Saturday morning. Might have been my favorite of the three talks. He is a very, very eloquent speaker, communicates very effectively, and it's just so authentic and endearing that, like,
what is his name? I don't know if I know.
Vivek Murthy, I think is his name.
Okay.
So,
That's close enough. Yeah.
just awesome. And his big thing is behavioral health, mental health, and he went through a long thing on social media, and sort of really highlighted the fact that social media is an untested experiment on our mental health, right? And
which we're failing.
Yes, and this brought me back to digital therapeutics, right? Which brought me back to learning that all digital therapeutics and all things digital are regulated by the FDA under an act from 1976, the Medical Device Act, right? So that's how old the legislature is, that the FDA is basing their ability and even their models for how they regulate things in the digital space. Okay.
Right. Yeah. And in 1976, NASA had computers that were about as strong as my phone.
Right.
They were writing this law just with a frame of reference that is not
right.
today.
So the thing about MDMA is the reason it's got a bad public rap, right? Because generally speaking, it's in the classification of street drugs, right? And the thing that people don't like about, what do people not like about street drugs? Well, they can impair your functions, and they are addictive.
Yeah. I mean, if you're driving on MDMA, that's really bad for society. Yeah. Or it's not.
Yeah.
Yes.
So,
but that's different than the clinical use of it, I think.
Yeah. But let me circle back, right? Let me circle back.
Yeah.
So you and I both listened to the Lex Friedman podcast with Mark Andreessen, right?
Yes.
And we I think we can both recommend, if you all who are listening, listen to Lex Friedman, or you listen to other podcasts, go find that episode and listen to it. It's pretty interesting. Mark Andreessen's a pioneer in the internet, built Netscape, and also is, one of the largest VCs. We've had critique and commentary about A16Z, but also think, fascinating, intelligent guy.
But Mark is really smart and he's worth listening to.
Yeah, definitely worth listening to. So the part of the show I want to bring up is where they were talking about AI, right? They're talking about AI, and they're talking about the advancement of tools. And Mark says, we have the best tools we've ever had right now. Where are the hyper-productive people, right? Where are the hyper-productive authors? And when he said that, I thought about Isaac Asimov. And I'm like, this guy wrote like 1,000 books when you just had like pen and paper. You know what I mean? And, and it made me think about myself. It was like, why am I not more productive? Why am I not more hyper-productive? I literally have the best tools. I was a programmer. I know all this stuff. Literally, why am I not even more productive, right? And so then Lex Friedman and him kind of mirrored the question back and forth, and then Mark answered, well, it's too easy to be distracted. It's too easy to be distracted, and it's too easy to consume, and we're sort of defaulting to that, right? So Vic, I want you to know, like, after I listened to that, I looked at my own screen time on my Apple phone, which I never look at. I never look at screen time because I view myself as a very productive person, okay? I view myself as a very productive person. So I just feel like basically I don't need to look at screen time.
You are relative to other people, but that doesn't mean that you are relative to, like, I don't know, your grandparents.
Yeah, or my best self. Or my best self, right? So I look at screen time. You know what the number one app was? Instagram. Instagram.
Yeah.
And by a large margin. Like, it was shocking. It actually shocked me how large the margin was. Okay.
You think you're just killing time while you wait for the elevator, killing time while you wait for something, but you end up getting sucked in, and it's 15 minutes later.
Yes. So where am I going with this? Right. I'm taking you around the world to kind of try to make a point. Where am I going with this? We have these apps on these phones. You talked about driving with MDMA. How many people are driving with Instagram?
Everyone.
And dying.
I mean, Instagram and text and TikTok, everyone, all the time.
So somehow it's okay for our society to have totally become addicted to this thing, this unregulated algorithm that pumps all the wrong things into our minds, makes us compare ourselves to other people, makes us hypersexualized, makes us, hyper politicized, right? Makes us unhappy, makes young people more suicidal. Okay. And these are at this point all empirical facts that I'm saying. This is not like, this is not anecdotes. Okay. These are things that are, we've got studies on this stuff at this point. Somehow that's okay, but MDMA is not.
And especially at, in a controlled setting.
Correct.
With a clinician guiding you through a therapeutic process where you basically learn about yourself and recover from PTSD.
Yeah, and increase your neuroplasticity.
That should be allowed.
Yes. So right now, what we're really dealing with is, and I think that the story talks about how this nonprofit has raised money because they believe that in 2024, there'll be, the legal framework will be in a place where they can actually start to do this stuff. Whereas right now it's too fraught with legal peril or whatever. Right. And we're really just fighting a political court of public opinion war right now. This is not a reality war. Right. I mean, so it actually made me think back about our conversation with Aaron and about the viability of digital therapeutics, because digital cannot just be positively therapeutic. It can be really, really negative. I don't think anyone would argue that we're more connected than ever, and people are more lonely than ever, and people are more desperate than ever, and our behavioral health issues are larger than they've ever been. And we don't ever think about that as like a bad thing that needs to really be looked at and really be regulated, right? And really be thought about differently than we've been thinking about it. These algorithms and the rules and all of this kind of stuff and what's allowed and the bots and the, all the crazy things that are allowed on those platforms. But we want to talk about MDMA, like, and all psychedelics as if they are somehow some different classification of bad thing. It's the equivalent of reefer madness. And, I'm excited for the day when we just realize we're not going to have enough therapists to handle all the behavioral health issues that we have. And by the way, the therapists have behavioral health issues too. Okay. And we're going to need an entirely new battery of ways to address mental health. So I'm off my soapbox, but anyway, all of these things have just become abundantly clear to me in recent days even. And so when I saw this headline, I was just like, yeah, great. And I'm glad VCs are getting in, this is good.
Yeah. And so I agree completely on the MDMA side and all psychedelics really in a like any medication.
A clinical setting. Yes.
Right.
I mean, the fact that we have to keep saying a clinical setting, we're going to talk about Ozempic in a minute, right? How many people are already on Ozempic and we know it ain't for clinical reasons, right?
They're using it completely off.
That's right. That's right. So, cut it. Cut the crap.
And then I love the new financing model. And so it's a great innovation that nonprofits can grow. And if I never have to go one of those damn breakfast things again, kind of
just write a check.
A tear jerking speaker about something, and then they pass the envelope around. I love the idea that, they create a business plan that can pay me 3 times my money over the next several years. And once I get that back, it's over. And so, I don't know, just it might drive actually more efficiencies in nonprofits in a way that could be healthy. So,
well, we drew the line before the show, comparing this to OpenAI. And, a lot of people who are not kind of constantly studying technology, may not know that OpenAI started as a nonprofit. Obviously now, I mean, I don't even know what it is anymore, but it started as a nonprofit, and now there's been, billions of dollars sort of, plunged into it. So I think this is a model we will see more and more. I think especially with these things where the near-term viability, that's kind of the common thread between AI and MDMA, right? is the near-term viability is very uncertain. So it makes sense to kind of put it in a nonprofit, right? Because commercial viability
Yeah.
is just not clear.
Yeah. But I think there's a lot of investments that you and I look at where it's going to be several years. Commercial viability is not clear. But the difference with these two is that they had a lot of public interest, and there are passionate people that will give money to a nonprofit because they have PTSD or their son or daughter or whatever. So it started off like that, but it's difficult to raise $100 million. I think they're trying to raise $85 million. It's hard to raise that scale in donations.
I a little bit disagree with you in terms of like, I don't think we look at, I mean, this is our whole conversation about digital therapeutics. Like digital therapeutics probably should be looking at, this model, right? Of like standing up a nonprofit, because that's kind of the thing. So what I mean on the AI side is the legal peril is not clear, right? The value that's going to be created, I think, is abundantly clear, right? We can see the productivity and the reduction in labor costs. We can see that, but what we can't really see is how is this going to work in the courts, and what's the risk of my capital investing in this thing if the courts decide to blow it up and say it's all plagiarism, right? I think with MDMA, there's a lot of safety issues. There's a lot of public opinion issues. I would say digital therapeutics, they don't have the exact same issues, but they've got their own path to viability issues. And it might make sense to stand up a nonprofit, but then, go round up some big VC for it. By the way, I was reading a crypto newsletter, and I didn't fact check this, but it had this ridiculous stat that like half of the VC that was invested over the last 12 months went into metaverse projects. And I don't know how they I don't know how they added that all up. I mean, I'm sure they were like, if it's got this little feature, it's a metaverse thing. But the idea that they could even come close to that kind of number for the metaverse, it's like, I'm totally fine with VCs investing in nonprofits for MDMA if we're going to have a bunch of people investing in the metaverse. Like,
Yeah.
It is better. I'm sorry. At least it's quote unquote the real world. It's, it's more the real world than all this digital stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Before we get to Ozempic, I want to just touch on Arboretum and these 4 seed funds, because we've been talking about the dearth of VC. I think last week or 2 weeks ago, we talked about SoftBank and Tiger and lots of growth funds cutting back or not being able to raise the fund that they were hoping for. And in the last week, we've had a lot of news sort of it seemed at the face of it opposite. I think you and I would say that they're not opposite. It's just a different niche. But let's just talk about Arboretum and these other funds for a minute.
Yeah, well, you lead on this one because you had done a little bit more reading on the Arboretum thing, and then I could talk about what I found in the information.
Yeah, so I follow Arboretum because they're one of the oldest healthcare kind of middle America VC firms. They've been around, probably over 20 years. They raised $268 million for their most recent fund. The difference in my mind, and of course I'm completely biased because it's what we do, but they're early stage healthcare investors. And I think the early stage is maybe not protected, but it's not as flush with money as the growth round. So there's kind of like, for the audience, there's seed, A, B, it kind of goes in order. And those early stages, you're typically putting a seed might be 3 to 5 million, A could be 5 to 20. And so they're significant rounds. It's not your rich uncle, but it's not the $300 million kind of growth round that was going on a year ago. So anyway, that was Arboretum, and then you found, I think in the information, the 4 seed funds. I don't know if they're all healthcare, but they're all early stage. Seed.
Yeah. So this is in contrast to us talking about all the large funds not being able to land. There was an article I was reading in the information that the headline is 3 reasons to look past the 40% drop in VC funding. Kate Clark is the writer, and she reported that there were 4 seed stage funds Uncorked Capital, Kindred Ventures, Correlation Ventures, and Unshackled Ventures that collectively raised nearly $1 billion. So, for us to have 1 week where 5 funds collectively announce, $1.25 billion raised, and they're all early stage, that's a shift in the narrative. Now, I'm not sure if that's a blip or if that's sort of the beginning of a trend, but as you and I have talked about off camera, off mic, when we have talked to institutional VCs, they have shared with us that they were over allocated in growth, and that they need to focus on seed and early stage, and that's where they're going to be concentrated in venture. And it was going to take some time, right, for them to all write down their books and all that other kind of stuff.
Sort of like they got to rotate out of that. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, but I have been hearing through the grapevine that Q3 would be when checks would start to be written again, specifically in the LP world. That we would start to see checks being rewritten in the LP world in Q3. And look, that would sort of mark a year, right, of us processing through this, because all the bad times really got started in Q3 of last year. So we'll have to track this closely and see, but it makes sense to me to start to see seed funds announcing closings, that the closings are not insignificant, right? Because LPs still have to deploy capital, right? So this may mean the beginning of some larger than normal seed funds, right? I mean, I think seed funds were generally rolling out in the 100, 150 range, maybe even sub 100 for the fund ones or whatever. So to see a bunch of 200 plus seed funds, that's not necessarily what I was expecting.
Yeah, I agree. And I want to just, well, at least my opinion is that this won't change the reality for the existing venture-backed companies out there that already raised a round of money or 2 rounds of money. They are not, that's not who the seed funds are going to be investing in. They're going to be investing in new companies. And so the reality of half the venture-backed companies are going to fail, I stand by that. I think even though there's these new funds coming out, I don't think they're going to do a C round, a D round in an existing company. So that market is still going to be really tight.
Now, there might be something like a seed recap where they basically take the company and buy it for a song or whatever. That might happen.
Yeah. So I'm redoing one of our portfolio companies now, and it is the 8th or 9th round, but we're calling it the A3 because A3 sounds like a good thing to call it. And it turns out you can call these things whatever you want. So it's an A3. It's not the 3rd round.
No, it's the 8th round.
An A. It's the A3 round. Okay, so I'm not going to say which company that is.
I guess.
Okay, so now the last topic is Ozempic. So in the Wall Street Journal again this week, I think it was yesterday, it might have been today. We'll put the link in the show notes. The headline is Ozempic can make you thin, but not necessarily healthy. And it is part of, with Ozempic gaining so much adoption. We know, everyone knows 5, 6, 10 people that are on Ozempic. You get incredible results, but it has a decent amount of pretty nasty side effects. You're kind of ramping up. So the way that it works is you start off very low dosage and kind of ramp up over time. And not everyone can tolerate it. And so you can get some pretty uncomfortable and bad side effects. So that's an issue. But what this article is talking about is you also lose lean muscle mass. As the article says, as quickly as you lose the fat.
Oh my gosh!
And so it's saying that you have to do squats and lunges and eat a lot of fish, eggs, protein, even though you're not hungry on Ozempic. So I read this and I just felt we should talk about it. It seems like people are not going to do this. You're going to lose lean muscle mass, and then you'll be lighter, but you will break a hip in 10 years. Or there's going to be other things that happen that are not good.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I'm not on it. I still have the 15 pounds of extra pounds hanging around me.
Yeah.
But it seems like a theme that is probably not going to end that well. I don't know how it's going to end, but I think the country on Ozempic is probably not going to be.
Yeah. I mean, maybe this is a time to tell you that I squatted 15,000 pounds on Tuesday.
Wow. Yeah. Is that a personal record?
I'm fairly certain. It was pretty intense.
Congratulations. That's incredible.
Yeah, it's pretty intense. Pretty intense. So the FDA commissioner was
15. I'm still recovering from that. 15,000
pounds?
Yeah.
Okay, hold on. I'll just tell you the breakdown, and then we'll keep going. So it was 5 sets. And the first set was 8 reps, 415 pounds. The second set was 8 reps, 430 pounds. The third set was 6 reps, 440 pounds. The fourth set was 5 reps, 455 pounds. And then the fifth set was 8 reps, 430 pounds.
I mean, you didn't go down.
I didn't do it by myself. Usually, I had my trainer killing me, I mean, I'm training for Worlds. You know that, right? So, I mean.
Yeah. I mean, someone trying to, strangle the air out of you can motivate you to work out. But that's a lot of weight and a lot of reps of a lot of weight. And so that's good. People are not going to do that, I don't think. And so I'm usually I don't care about this stuff. I feel like it's, each person can make their own choice, but it feels like a pretty big trend, and I don't know, not that great.
Yeah. So FDA Commissioner Califf was pretty. I need to be careful about how I characterize this. Among the things he was talking about, he was asked about Ozempic at Aspen Ideas Health, and he was pretty positive about the findings and about the lack of drawbacks to it. And what I have generally heard from physicians who are dealing with either obesity or the related sort of comorbid diseases around obesity is they're just happy to finally have something that works. And so I think people are just sort of force ranking, the best of a worst of a bad set of options, right? And just sort of recognizing we have not been able to figure out, and quite frankly, with all due respect, the fitness industry, which has gotten richer and richer and larger, has not been able to actually figure out how to offset the obesity trend in America, right? And so it does seem we do still need to figure out what to do here. And I didn't say the squatting stuff to try to imply people just need to get in the weight room. I do understand that people have serious challenges around this stuff. But I do think we are, for those of us who are tracking, I hate to call it this, but the longevity space. So your Andrew Hubermans, your Peter Attias, your Rhonda Patricks, people, one very consistent trend in that space is that for quality of life and also length of life, there's really nothing that replaces exercise, right? And so weight loss and the benefits from exercise are two different things, right? You may need to lose weight to lower your risk of heart disease and some of these other things. And at the very same time, if you're not exercising, you still are at risk. Like failure to exercise is its own sort of disease state with its own sort of comorbidities, right? And I think you probably could shorten the article on Ozempic by just saying, Ozempic is helpful if you can handle the side effects, but you better still be exercising, right? You know what I mean? Do not take this as if it replaces exercise for you, because it doesn't, right?
Yeah, and I mean, we both are into longevity stuff. I've really started getting into the combination of VO Max and Zone 2 training, and trying to do both, right? Like I've done sort of more high intensity training my whole life. And that's what I know, like going on a run or biking or something that's, much more intense. That's what I'm used to, playing sports and things. But the zone 2 stuff is actually more beneficial and almost harder.
It's boring
to carve out the time for. It's boring.
It's boring.
But I think it maybe is more beneficial, or it's equally beneficial. So yes, if you used a weight loss regimen as a way to kind of jumpstart your health, and then you focused on maintaining it and getting a lot of exercise, you could probably wean yourself off it over time. That could be really good. Like any tool, it probably has an important role, but it can't be the only.
Yeah, I think that's really what it is, right? Like the benefits of exercise are not, I don't think they can directly be pointed at weight loss, and they also are not limited to weight loss, right? There's all these other, there's your lymphatic system that just works fundamentally better when you exercise. There's all these things that are happening in exercise that
I'm not trying to lose weight.
Yeah, me either.
All those longevity guys you mentioned, none of them are overweight. That's like the first thing that they have. Right. But then they all are exercising because it's sort of, it's wellness, and it keeps your metabolism in the right way. So all the other side.
That's right. I think there's even brain health benefits, to exercise, right? There's some correlation between Alzheimer's and lack of exercise and things of that nature that are starting to emerge. So I think really, the larger dialogue that is right now very loud in the longevity space, but that is a niche space and needs to sort of make its way into the broader sort of Gen Pop discussion, is that exercise is not a direct answer to weight loss. It has all these other holistic physiological benefits, and that we really, as humans, need it. Like when you really just look at the way our bodies are constructed, they need to be working. They need to be moving. They need to be sweating. They need to be handling resistance. They need to be pumping oxygen throughout. The modern world has made it harder for us to do that naturally, right? Our environments just no longer really support that. So again, this discussion is not to, hopefully this is not triggering anyone, and it's certainly not to shame anyone's current state of living. We have evolved via our industrial lives and technology, to not have an environment that cues us to exercise in any meaningful way. And this is more sort of a byproduct of modern life.
Yeah, I'm going to leave here, go out, get in the elevator to go downstairs, get in my car, which is in the basement, go pull into my garage inside the house,
and then sit down.
Look at Instagram.
And then go sit down.
Go sit down and eat dinner. And so, if I don't intentionally exercise, I'm not going to get it just in my day-to-day kind of working through life.
That's right. Yeah. So, I think that, and I think that's another thing that's really emerging, is the importance of designing our environment to support the habits we want, and not over relying on willpower. Like there's such a huge fallacy about willpower, and then even people establishing some sense of who's better or who's worse based on their ability to marshal their willpower. This is just bullshit. We need to find ways to better design our environments such that people in the normal course of living are healthier. Period. That's the goal, right? That's the North Star. How do we just help people in their normal course of living to be healthier, right? As opposed to go in the opposite direction.
Yeah, I agree. And so when are your worlds? When should our whole audience come and cheer you on at the Jiu-Jitsu Worlds?
No one needs to come, but I will talk about it, win or lose, when I get back. So it's going to be, it's Labor Day weekend. So I've got a little countdown on my phone, and it is 62 days.
How many days?
62 days. I honestly, like, compared to how I felt last year for Worlds, and for anyone who's listening that doesn't know, I started competing in jiu-jitsu last year, pretty seriously, as serious as you can for a 46, 47-year-old, serious enough that I train a ridiculous amount and I compete, I don't know, 15 or so times a year.
Yeah, I mean, you fight people every day or every several times a week.
Yeah. In my academy, I'm training with, a bunch of 20.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Yeah, like it's a controlled setting, but you're fighting people that are not as old.
No, definitely not. No one is as old as me. That I'm working with. They're all younger. But then I go to.
So at Worlds, how many fights do you have to win?
Well, the bracket is still building. Last year it was 4 matches to win. So there were 16 people in the bracket. I was effectively unranked last year because I was like a brand new blue belt. But this year I'm probably going to be number 1 ranked because I won last year. So you get a bunch of points, and that kind of carries over into the next year. So I'm anticipating, and also a bunch of the blue belts who were really, really good were promoted to purple belt. And I'm still a blue belt. I've got, kind of another year before I get promoted to purple. I expect to get promoted to purple in a year, assuming I do well. So that competition is in 62 days.
It's hard to repeat, man. It's hard to repeat. People are going to be coming after you.
No, dude, trust me. I feel the target on my back. That's why I squatted 15,000 pounds on Tuesday.
Yeah.
So I'm getting after it, man. But no, I feel really, really good physically. Going into it, I feel pretty good mentally. I feel like I get to focus on skill development and acquisition. And, and look, man, I just feel fortunate that like my body is in a place where I can go do this. It's really, the older we get, the more we realize what a gift it is to be able to move, and to be able to move in a skilled way at 47 is just a tremendous gift. So I'm going to be thankful to my body.
There's something about you. You're in a ring or you're in a setting against one other guy, and you're having to try to think through what is he going to do, and then what will I do, and that you can't replicate that in somewhere that's not. That
No. It's like you think you know everything, and then you get on the mat, and the referee goes, fight, and then it's just like, you know what I mean?
Right.
It's like the whole world shrinks to you and this person, right? It's incredible. There ain't no Instagram there, man. It's just you and this person,
Right.
So I'm looking forward to it.
Well, I'm super proud of you for that. I am going to my very intensive training in Italy next week.
I'm proud of you.
We're going to try to hit as many pasta shots, as many pasta places as we can find. I'm sure I'll do some walking. Maybe I'll get a bike ride in. But I'll be out next week. And so try to take care of the audience while I'm gone.
We'll do, Captain.
And hopefully I won't gain a bunch of weight while I'm
No, you should gain a bunch of weight. You can lose it when you get back. Go have a good time, man. Eat all the food. Italy's the best. Go enjoy it. And we will record our best show, and then you'll have to come back and figure out how to like work your way back into this thing.
Yeah, exactly. I'll have to like claw my way back in. I don't want to look at. I'm not going to look at the ratings next week. I make sure to ignore them.
All right, man. Look, I'm going to get some dinner.
All right, safe travels. Okay, thanks.
Take care.